Have you ever caught yourself mid-conversation, realizing you haven't heard a word the other person said because you were too busy living an entirely different life in your mind? Or maybe you've spent an hour pacing your room, replaying scenarios that haven't happened yet, perfecting dialogues for arguments that may never come? If so, you're not alone, and you're not just overthinking. In psychology, people who turn in circles thinking deeply are not just thinking. They are falling into what is called compulsive reverie, a form of mental escape where imaginary worlds seem safer, more predictable, and frankly more appealing than the real world. Today we're diving deep into why some of us prefer the cinema of our minds over the chaos of reality. And if this speaks to you, stick around, because we're finally putting words to what you've been feeling all along. Let's paint a picture. It's walking into a room and immediately replaying an argument that has never taken place, just in case it happens one day. You're crafting the perfect comeback, the flawless defense, the exact tone of voice that will leave them speechless. You rehearse it 20 times. But the argument? It only exists in your mind. It's pacing back and forth, making 100 steps while imagining a future version of yourself who has it all figured out. The one who's confident, successful, loved. The one who finally said the right thing, made the right choice, became the right person. Meanwhile, the present you hasn't even brushed their teeth yet. It's when your daydreams give you more emotions than real conversations, when the thrill of an imagined victory feels more satisfying than an actual achievement, when a fictional romance in your head sparks more feeling than the person sitting right next to you. It's when the life in your head is more comforting, more vivid, more real than the one around you. But here's the thing. This isn't because you're delusional or disconnected from reality. It's because reality has taught you to expect less than what you need. And your mind has learned to fill the gap. So, why does this happen? Why do some people build entire universes inside their heads instead of engaging with the world in front of them? First, control. In your mind, you write the script. You control the outcomes. People respond the way you need them to. Conversations go smoothly. Conflicts resolve neatly. There are no awkward silences, no rejection, no unpredictability. In a world that often feels chaotic and uncontrollable, your inner world offers structure, safety, and certainty. Second, protection. For many, living in their heads is a defense mechanism. Maybe you've been hurt before. Maybe you've been misunderstood, dismissed, or let down one too many times. Your mind becomes a refuge, a place where you can't be disappointed because you control every variable. It's not escapism for the sake of fantasy, it's escapism for the sake of survival. Third, unmet needs. Sometimes we retreat inward because the external world simply isn't giving us what we need. Maybe it's connection, validation, purpose, or excitement. When reality feels lacking, the mind compensates. It creates richer relationships, bolder adventures, deeper meaning. Not because you're ungrateful for your life, but because your inner world reflects what your outer world has failed to provide. And finally, overstimulation. The real world is loud, demanding, exhausting. Social expectations, daily responsibilities, constant notifications. For sensitive or introverted people, retreating into the mind isn't avoidance, it's recovery. It's where they recharge, process, and make sense of everything. Here's where it gets complicated. Living in your head can be beautiful. It's where creativity is born. It's where artists find their muse, where writers craft their stories, where innovators envision what doesn't yet exist. Some of the greatest minds in history spent more time in their inner worlds than the outer one. But it can also become a trap, because the more time you spend in your head, the harder it becomes to engage with reality. Real conversations feel shallow compared to the ones you've scripted. Real people disappoint because they don't act like the characters you've imagined. Real life feels dull because it lacks the intensity of your inner narratives. You start to notice the gap widening. The version of you in your mind is confident, articulate, successful. The version in reality is anxious, stumbling, still figuring it out. And the more you compare, the more you retreat. Relationships suffer because you're only half present. Opportunities slip by because you're too busy imagining the perfect moment instead of seizing the imperfect one in front of you. Time passes, and you realize you've spent years planning a life instead of living it. The cruel irony? The very thing that once protected you now isolates you? Let's dig deeper. You don't just randomly decide to live in your head. Something taught you that your inner world is safer than the outer one. Maybe it was a childhood where your emotions were dismissed, so you learned to process everything internally. Maybe it was relationships where being vulnerable meant getting hurt, so you built fortresses in your mind instead. Maybe it was a world that felt too harsh, too judgmental, too exhausting, so you created a softer alternative. Reality taught you to expect less than you need, less understanding, less connection, less safety. And so, your mind learned to provide what reality couldn't. This isn't a character flaw. It's an adaptation, a survival strategy. Your mind did what it needed to do to keep you going. But here's the question. Is it still serving you, or has the shelter become a cage? So, what do you do if you recognize yourself in all of this? The goal isn't to stop living in your head entirely. Your inner world is valuable. It's where you process, create, dream, and heal. The goal is balance. Start small. Notice when you're drifting. When you catch yourself replaying imaginary conversations, pause. Ask yourself, what am I avoiding right now? What need am I trying to meet? Bring your inner world into reality. If you imagine having deep conversations, seek them out. If you dream of creative projects, start one. If you fantasize about connection, reach out to someone real. Your inner world often reflects what you actually crave. Practice presence. Ground yourself in the moment. Feel your feet on the floor. Notice your breath. Engage your senses. Reality isn't the enemy. Disconnection is. Be gentle with yourself. You're not broken for living in your head. You're human. You adapted. And now you're learning a new way to be. Living in your head isn't weakness. It's not something to be ashamed of. For many, it's been a sanctuary, a source of creativity, a way to survive. But life isn't meant to be lived entirely in your mind. The messy, imperfect, unpredictable reality out here, it has something your inner world can never fully provide. Genuine connection, real growth, and moments of unexpected beauty. So, if this resonates with you, if you've spent years building worlds in your head, know this. You're not alone. And it's okay to step out of your mind and into your life, even if it's just for a moment at a time. Because reality might have taught you to expect less, but maybe it's time to teach it to give you more. Thanks for watching. And if this spoke to you, let me know in the comments. Sometimes, just naming it is the first step to changing it.